This is Gus Summers, and you're watching In Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about my favorite films and actors. This week, we have another of Hollywood's greatest actors. This wonderful woman had a 60 plus year career and not only has won Academy Awards, all sorts of several nominations, worked with some of the greatest actors in Hollywood. She is actually considered one of, if not the greatest actors in Hollywood. Of course, I'm speaking about the great Katharine Hepburn. She has done so many wonderful movies that are iconic for their times and even relevant for today. Well, first up is a film that when it first came out, it was warmly received. It wasn't a big box office draw. It did well, but since then it has established itself as one of the great films of Hollywood. I'm talking about Bringing Up Baby. She plays Susan. She just goes through life kind of floating her way through relationships and life itself, and just brings people into the whirlwind, which is her life. Well, she encounters this paleontologist who she just immediately attaches herself to, and in my opinion, falls in love with him. And he's portrayed wonderfully by another iconic Hollywood actor, Mr. Cary Grant. His name is David, and he's a paleontologist who is putting together a dinosaur, and he's missing one piece, and he's waiting for this piece. And he's also he's engaged, planning to be married, and he's also trying to convince a wealthy benefactor and her lawyer to donate money to the museum so he can continue his work. So all this is happening in his life. He is a workaholic and kind of not scattered brain, but very tense and very nervous. So in all this, he's trying to compartmentalize everything, which he does well. But then I love it. Chaos throws in his mix Susan, who's just the complete opposite of him. And what I love about the film and all these films is that the development of relationships, how people come together and love blooms or affection blooms, and mistakes happen and they work them out together, and something beautiful comes of it. So he meets Susan while he's trying to convince the lawyer of this wealthy benefactor, Mr. Peabody, to give him the $1 million, or the museum the $1 million. They're playing golf. He runs into Susan. She does all these mishaps, which takes him away. And he's yelling, "Mr. Peabody, I'll be right back, Mr. Peabody." And she drags him away, and he's trying to tell her, "I want nothing to do with you. Leave me alone. You're crazy." And he tells her all of this, and she's just oblivious to all of it. And she's just, "Oh, David, you're wonderful." And he's just, "Leave me alone." So the story goes on, in that she convinces him to take her to the country because her brother has sent a leopard, back in the day when you can just send leopards, across the world, to her to take to her aunt's house, it's a gift for her aunt. So she solicits the help of David. He reluctantly goes, and now they have this road journey with the leopard. They have to sing to the leopard to calm him down, and they're bickering back and forth, and she just thinks David's wonderful. And they finally get to the house, their aunt's house, and there's mistaken identities, and Susan tells her aunt that he is someone else, and so he needs to pretend to be someone else. And then they meet the local people. He meets the people who work on the estate. So all these great little happenings, and all these things that are happening with all the characters, which are wonderful. Great character study. But one of the themes is he's been trying to build this dinosaur, and he finally got the one last piece that he was missing. It's a clavicle. and he's been taking it with him everywhere in this box. So one of the things that happens is that they get to their house. Talk about great scenes. I love this little scene. He gets to the house. He inadvertently gets his clothes get dirty, and so he wants to take a shower. So he leaves the bone in a box on the bed, and Susan comes in and says, "Oh, what's this?" He goes, "Oh, it's a clavicle, it's a bone." Blah, blah. Oh, cute. Well, her aunt has a family dog named George, and dogs being dogs, Susan gets up, leaves. The dog sniffs, sees the bone, grabs it, and takes it and leaves. David comes out and tells Susan, "Where's my bone? Where's the bone?" And she goes, "I don't know." She goes, "George must have taken it. He's the dog. It's a bone. Oh no!" So they start running around looking for George. In the house, outside the house, and they're yelling. Cary Grant's yelling George, and she's yelling George, 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 and he stops. He stops and he says, "Can you please say something else? Don't repeat what I'm saying." And she says, "Okay, David, fine." And then he says, "George," and she says, "Nice, George." He goes, "George, nice, George." It's one of those little scenes. Again, it's funny because because we know Katharine Hepburn to be very spirited and independent, and here she is doing this light comedy, and it just played beautifully. It's a wonderful film, and I know you enjoy it when you see it. Coming up is another film with Cary Grant. They did a few films together, 4 in total, and again, this is another light comedy. It's called Holiday, and she plays Linda, the daughter of a rich banker. And at first, what happens is that Cary Grant, who portrays Johnny, meets her older sister somewhere on a trip. You don't see this. You learn all this while you're watching the film, and they hit it off wonderfully. They decide to get married. And so she returns home, and then Johnny, Cary Grant, will follow later because she wants to introduce him to her father and her family. Well, Johnny, Cary Grant, as he is, visiting for the first time, and the sister tells the father that, this is Johnny Case. He is, I met him, we're going to get married. The father was, "Oh no, we can't do this." And the father starts questioning him, "Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?" And so on and so forth. And during that time, the father learns that he grew up poor, but he's worked his way through school. He put himself through school. He continues to work. He's got himself a nice job, and he wants to marry his daughter. So the father reluctantly gives his blessing, because at least he saw that Johnny wasn't there for their money, that he actually has established himself. And what's wonderful is that here they begin to know what type of person he is, that he's a good person, and throughout the film he reveals that he's worked for a very long time, and now at this age, what he wants to do is basically take a couple years off from working. All he wants to do is just travel. He's got some money. He wants to get married. He wants to see the world, something that he hasn't been able to do because he's worked and gone to school. So he wants to take time off. Well, everyone except Linda, Katharine Hepburn, thinks this is a horrible idea. The father wants to give him a job at the bank, put him at work right away, introduce him to the who's who in society, and the daughter agrees. And you need to work. We can't take time off. Business. Time is money. Money is time. And we have to push forward and promote ourselves and get ourselves out there. Where Linda thinks it's a wonderful idea. You've worked. Take your time, and take your time off. And she is rebellious. Her younger brother is pretty much broken by her father. Her father's a very stern banker, and the older sister is in line with the father. This is who we are. This is our family line, and this is our family business, and we have to do these things, and everyone must come in line with us. The brother, being the youngest, basically broken, and just does what the father says. He hates working at the bank, but he works at the bank and does what the father wants, and his older sister. But Katharine Hepburn, playing that character that she does wonderfully, is rebellious. Can't we do something different? Can't we be different? Why do we have to do things as they're prescribed for us? Why do we be more free spirits? And that clashes with her father and her sister. And what I find interesting in her character is that she's not that rebellious, independent, character where she's feisty and she's I don't care what people think and so on and so forth. She loves her family. She loves her sister and her father and her brother. There is a great scene when she finds out that her sister and Cary Grant are going to get married. She tells his sister, "Let me plan the wedding shower. Let's make it intimate and small, just us." And they have this game room where they used to play as kids, because they're pretty close in age. We can have it in there. It'll just be us, the family, a few friends, something intimate. Because the sister is, one of those socialites that wants to be seen and preyed upon by everyone and given praise, and Linda isn't like that. And so the sister agrees, but then, being the sister, she does her own thing and makes a big lavish wedding shower, invites all the who's of the city and friends and family to the wedding shower. And Linda is disappointed, and what she does is more retreats into herself. She becomes more quiet. So she ends up during that night going up to the playroom. The sister sends Johnny, Cary Grant, to find Linda. He goes, "She's up there, she's moping, why don't you help her come down?" Well, when he gets there, they begin to connect, and you see something blossoming, because though they're from separate worlds, they have that wonderful connection of, let's do things differently. Let's do something that the world says, let's follow this route. Let's pave our own way. And that's one of the things I love about this movie, is that even though society says, look, this is what we consider successful, this is what you need to do, this is how the world should be, you have these grand individuals that say, wait a minute, no, I want to follow my own path and do my own, live my own life, which is wonderful. And that whole scene, when you watch that whole scene in the playroom, it's wonderful, because you see her brother ends up showing up, and they just remember these toys. I remember that, and they just start talking and playing, and they're performing. And then Cary Grant has two friends who come to the wedding shower, and they inadvertently find themselves in the playroom, and they're like, "Oh, here we are," and then they're all playing with the toys, and there happens to be those old marionette and puppet stages that they had the curtain that you would you would play with the puppets and kids would watch. They had one of those, and so they're playing with the puppets. It's just a wonderful scene, how you don't have to do or follow the path of others, that you can follow your own path. And sometimes, and most of the times, because the father and the sister come in, what are you doing? Why are you acting like this? That, like for Katharine Hepburn's character, as much as she wants to connect with her brother, her father and sister, there's no connection there. And she's tried to maintain it, but she learned that eventually she had to clip it away, do away with it, and find her own connection, which she did with Cary Grant and his character Johnny. Wonderful film. Again, of the characters and the struggles between family and friends, and and strangers, and just sometimes the connections happen in the strangest ways, in the strangest places. A wonderful film. Just one last film. One last film. Again, now this one is definitely a film that is not only applicable back in the 1960s when it was filmed, but so relevant today. Guess who's coming for dinner? You know, it stars Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy, and the wonderful Sidney Poitier. The film is Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy are a wealthy, a liberal couple, a white couple, and they raise their daughter in liberal ideology. You know, everyone's equal. Equal, regardless of race, color, creed, education, social class, what have you. Well, their daughter Joey comes and announces that she's going to get married. They're excited. She brings in Sidney Poitier. And so this begins again a chain of events that is really, again, a character study of the true, how the true essence of a person, when their ideology has to be brought to the forefront and revealed through actions. So Joey reveals to Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy that she's going to marry Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier is, I love it because it was all against convention. He was married before. I believe he was a widower, if I remember correctly. But he's a doctor, and he's not staying in the United States. He's going off to a third world country to offer his services, and she wants to go with him. So, you know, all these things that you would expect, again, people to follow for in society. You know, he's well educated, he's a doctor, he should open a practice, raise a family. So all that he's not doing, but he's able to do that. But of course, the biggest issue is race, because they're a mixed couple. And back in the 60s, there were still about a third of the states still had laws on their books prohibiting interracial marriage. So the whole film is basically how Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy have to deal with this relationship and their own ideologies. And, you know, later in the mix, you bring his parents in, and it's what I love about it is it's the mothers who are trying to be more understanding, who are more understanding. And that's one thing I loved about the film and Katharine Hepburn. She had such this warm and motherly presence, the gentle smile that she has, and her voice. And we know her, you know, from being, you know, that tough gal, that, you know, with that raspy voice and, you know, that look to her and the way she does things. But she was so gentle, and I loved how she handled the material because it came through her presence. Because you know, her husband, Spencer Tracy, you know, is not that he's against it. Everything is portrayed as if he's against it, but he's really thinking about it. He struggle within him, because it's one thing to think, you know, present your ideology in a theoretical sense, but then to have to live it. And just a couple things about Spencer Tracy. His performance, you know, I always loved it because there isn't a lot of dialogue between him and everybody. He's always very quiet and always very pensive. He always has this pensive mood. He has his hands behind his back, and it's just kind of looking down and looking to the side. It doesn't say much. And I thought that was wonderful because you can see that the struggle was within. And he said more without saying any dialogue than if he had spoken, you know, words. And a few personal things about this one is that this film actually happened to be his last film. And after it was complete, he passed away 2 weeks after. So he never got to see the film. During the filming of the movie, he was basically dying, and they all knew. And he was in horrible health. And they made special arrangements to have him film his scenes when he was feeling well, which was usually in the morning. So they filmed him in the morning and gave him time to rest for the next day's shooting. And sometimes, you know, he was doing really well, and other times, you know, he was horrible. Sidney Poitier even said that, you know, a lot of scenes that you see him as if he's talking to Spencer Tracy, he wasn't even there. He was talking to nobody. Someone was just reading him lines and he was just speaking. And he said, but when you saw him act, he goes, the same with Katharine Hepburn, when you saw them, but when he saw Spencer Tracy when on his good days, he goes, it was amazing. He goes, wow, and you would realize why they're legends. And one other note, Katharine Hepburn also refused to see the film, said she couldn't. It was too painful for her, so she never saw the film either. So there's a lot of personal feelings in the film regarding the actors themselves, but the film itself is iconic because even today, when you would think in our day and age when there would be less friction between individuals, races, and countries, it's in some parts very heightened, and it's surprising and sad. But the film ends up dealing with those issues wonderfully. And I don't want to give too much away if you haven't seen it. But again, it's a wonderful film to learn about not only the relationships between characters, but the relationship with oneself and what a person thinks and how he acts upon those thoughts. Wonderful films. Wonderful films. Again, the films Bringing Up Baby, Holiday, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Fantastic films, and she just proves why she is the legend that she is. Well, that's what I got for you today. This is Gus Summers, and you've been watching In-Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about my favorite films and actors. And be sure to visit us every Thursday at theinshow.com from 1 to 2 p.m. where I host the In-Show, where I bring on celebrities and all sorts of guests. Just talk about their projects and whatever it is that they are, what's on their minds. Of course, visit us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, all those great social media sites. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.